Stephen and Jessica were the kind of couple you'd see in magazines or high-profile gala covers, sharp, striking, and seemingly invincible. They met during their college years, both ambitious, driven, and passionate about building a life beyond mediocrity. Stephen studied finance while Jessica majored in marketing, and their chemistry was instant. Not just in love, they became business partners, too, creating a health tech startup right after graduation. Their long nights of coding, pitching, and dreaming finally paid off when they sold their company in a massive acquisition deal. By 30, they were millionaires. Their success didn't make them recluse misers. It gave them the freedom to indulge. Stephen loved luxury cars and scotch. Jessica adored rare perfumes and private art galleries. They built a modern mansion in the hills, custom designed with high-end smart tech, infinity pools, and a hidden wine cellar where they often hosted extravagant parties for their exclusive circle. But the real reason their relationship stood out was their openness. They were best friends first, playful, exploratory, brutally honest with each other about desires and fantasies. They had a passionate sex life, constantly trying new things, experimenting with gadgets, games, and role play. At first, it bonded them even closer, kept their flame alive, even after a decade of marriage. They were the kind of couple who believed nothing could corrupt their trust. That illusion wouldn't last forever. Stephen was the first to feel it. The boredom, the repetitiveness. He didn't cheat. He didn't lose interest in Jessica. But somewhere deep inside, the thrill started to dull. Jessica could sense it even before he said anything. Their bedroom time became more scheduled than spontaneous. His compliments started sounding polite rather than passionate. And even though Jessica still adored him and tried to spice things up, she could feel him slipping into a hunger for something new, something darker. That's when Stephen stumbled across the swinger forums. It started harmlessly, reading posts, lurking in threads, curious. But he quickly fell into the rabbit hole. Dozens of married couples sharing stories of swapping partners, group indulgences, and bizarre yet thrilling nights. What gripped him wasn't just the act. It was the psychology behind it. The idea of watching your wife with another man or being watched yourself felt like a complete abandonment of ego, control, and monogamy. It terrified him, and that's why it obsessed him. He sat on the idea for weeks before bringing it up. They were in their hot tub, sipping wine under the stars when he finally whispered, "Have you ever thought about trying something more wild?" Jessica laughed at first. "We already do wild," she teased. "What? You want to swing from chandeliers now?" Stephen didn't smile. He watched her carefully and said, "I mean with other people like another couple." Jessica's smile vanished. She stared at him, wine glass frozen midair. "You're not serious." "I'm not saying we do it," Stephen said quickly, sensing her reaction. "Just think about it. We trust each other more than most people do. What if this makes it even stronger?" Jessica didn't reply. She just got out of the tub and went inside. For days, she avoided the topic. Stephen didn't push, but he didn't drop it either. Over the next few weeks, he began planting little seeds, quoting articles, telling stories of couples who claimed it improved their marriages. He framed it as an act of freedom, not infidelity. Eventually, Jessica exploded. "You want to watch me with another man?" she shouted one night, slamming the drawer shut. "You want to see me front someone else? What the hell is wrong with you?" Stephen's voice was calm, unnervingly so. "I want to feel something real again, something terrifying, something that breaks us and rebuilds us." "You're sick." He didn't argue. He just said maybe. "But I think I'm being honest." Jessica cried herself to sleep that night, but over the next few months, Stephen's obsession wore her down. He didn't beg. He didn't force. He simply waited, feeding her justifications, showing her videos, recounting fantasies in the bedroom until they became normal. Slowly, her disgust turned into reluctant curiosity. Was he right? Was she denying herself something out of fear? She didn't say yes, but one night, after 3 glasses of wine, she whispered only once with a couple I choose. Stephen kissed her forehead, hiding the wild grin threatening to burst from his lips. That's how it began. They flew to an elite private club in the Caribbean, an underground retreat for elite lifestyle enthusiasts. Every guest signed NDAs. No cameras, no phones, just masks, anonymity and wealth. Jessica was stiff, anxious the entire trip, but Stephen was composed, taking the lead. The couple they met were elegant, Mark and Sierra. Married for 12 years, poised and playful. They had done this many times. The conversations were gentle. There was no rush, just soft touches, quiet flirtations, shared wine, exchanged glances. The first night didn't go anywhere. Jessica was too nervous, but by the second something shifted. Stephen watched her laugh with Mark across the lounge. Her body language loosened. Her eyes sparked with something unfamiliar. And that night, in the candlelit guest suite, Jessica gave in. What happened that night was electric, confusing, liberating. When it was over, Jessica didn't cry. She didn't hate herself. She didn't hate Stephen. In fact, she felt powerful, desired, reborn. That moment changed everything. When they got back home, Jessica didn't speak of it. Stephen didn't pressure. But a week later, she whispered during a kiss, maybe. Just one more. It started with a whisper, a feeling Jessica couldn't quite name. A few weeks had passed since their sixth encounter with another couple. By now, Stephen and Jessica had developed a strange rhythm, scouting new couples, hosting extravagant dinners as a front, and ending their nights in tangled bedsheets and blurred moral lines. The mansion, once a place of love and comfort, had become a revolving stage for pleasure, dominance, and indulgence. But Jessica had grown quieter after the last one. Something about that night, something intangible, left her unsettled. Maybe it was how the other man looked at her, like she wasn't a person, but a thrill. Maybe it was the brief moment Stephen looked away while she kissed someone else, as if he couldn't stomach it anymore. Or maybe it was just her body trying to say something her mind refused to hear. She chalked it up to stress. Until the nausea began. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a light wave in the mornings, a bit of dizziness when climbing the marble stairs. Jessica, known for her pristine routine, began missing her morning yoga. The chef started noticing her skipping breakfast. The wine she once adored now made her gag. Then came the delay in her cycle. She tried not to panic. Her body was probably just confused, she thought. Jet lag, stress, hormones, anything but that. But when the fourth morning came and the nausea hit her like a punch in the gut, she stood staring at the mirror, her heart pounding louder than the rain hitting the glass. She went to the pharmacy herself, wore sunglasses and a scarf, as if someone might recognize her. She bought 2 tests, just to be sure. Back in her marble-tiled bathroom, she locked the door and waited 2 lines. Then again, 2 lines. She dropped the test stick and backed away like it had bitten her. For several minutes, Jessica just stood there, her body trembling. The silence in the room felt louder than anything she'd ever heard. Then came the flashbacks. Hands, bodies, faces, moans, the rotating carousel of their escapades. 6 couples, 6 men. No protection, no control. Her stomach twisted, not from pregnancy, but disgust. She gripped the sink, staring into her own eyes in the mirror. And saw someone else, someone she didn't recognize, someone whose body wasn't hers anymore, whose choices weren't her own. When Stephen returned home that evening, humming and tossing his jacket onto the couch, he didn't notice her sitting in the dim living room. She had been there for hours, lights off, phone untouched, eyes red. "You're early," he said casually. "I'm pregnant," she replied coldly. The air snapped. Stephen froze mid-step. His face shifted. Surprise, then joy, then confusion. "Pregnant. That's... Wait, what? Are you sure?" Jessica didn't blink. 2 tests, both positive. For a brief moment, Stephen smiled. He walked toward her slowly, cautiously, kneeling beside her with what he thought was the appropriate tenderness. "Hey, that's not bad news. We can figure this out." "Figure what out?" she snapped, pulling away. "Whose baby it is?" Stephen's jaw tensed. "You don't know that." "I don't know that." She stood now, yelling. "We've had sex with 6 different men, Stephen. 6 without protection. I don't even remember all their names. How can you look me in the eye and act like this is manageable? Stephen looked defensive, standing up to match her height. You agreed to this. You said you were enjoying it. I did it for you, she spat, voice trembling. Because I loved you. Because you made me feel like I had to. Don't play the victim now, Jessica, Stephen growled. You weren't crying when it was happening. Don't pretend you didn't get off on it. That was the moment everything broke. Jessica slapped him across the face so hard it echoed. Stephen didn't stagger. He just stared at her with eyes that burned, then retaliated with a slap of his own. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to draw a gasp from both of them. Silence. The kind that feels like the final breath before a building collapses. Jessica's face turned, but her body didn't flinch. She slowly turned her gaze back toward him. Her pupils had shrunk to black pinpoints. Stephen opened his mouth, maybe to apologize, but it was too late. You've killed everything inside me, she said flatly. You've taken who I was, what we had. You fed me poison and told me it was wine. Stop exaggerating. Do you even hear yourself? She barked. I am carrying a stranger's child, Stephen. There is no version of this story that ends well. Then Stephen, cornered by guilt and frustration, made his worst mistake. He stepped over to the bedroom drawer and pulled out the small black Glock he kept for emergencies. Don't push me, Jessica, he warned, holding it tightly. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Jessica didn't scream. She didn't run. She stared at him as if watching a man she once knew morph into a monster right before her eyes. You're threatening me now. Stephen's grip tightened. I'm warning you, you're spiraling. Good, she said. And then, without breaking eye contact, she picked up the heavy baseball bat from under the couch, left there after their casual game last weekend, and hurled it at his wrist with precision. The gun hit the floor with a metallic thud in that split second of shock. Jessica lunged. She snatched the gun, stepped back 3 feet, and aimed it at his chest. He raised his hands instinctively. Jessica, listen to me. You've taken everything from me, she whispered. My body, my sanity. And now I'm going to take the one thing you worshipped more than me, your own life. Please. She didn't wait. The shot was muffled, thanks to the silencer already screwed on. Stephen fell back against the wall. Blood soaking his shirt, his face frozen in disbelief. He looked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't. Jessica stood there shaking, the barrel still smoking in her hand, the smell of gunpowder sharp in her nostrils. Her entire body was heaving, not from fear, but from something darker relief. She walked toward his body slowly, knelt beside him, and whispered, You always wanted a new thrill. Tell me, Stephen, was this thrilling enough? For a few minutes, she sat in silence. Just the steady hum of the AC, no tears, no screaming, just the ticking of a clock and her own breath. Then she stood up, wiped the blood off her hands, and looked around the room. This wasn't over, not yet. What Stephen started with his fantasies, she would end with her vengeance, and everyone involved would pay. Jessica didn't move for a long time after Stephen collapsed. The weight of what she had done sinking in slowly, like ink spreading through water. Her ears buzzed, and for a brief moment she felt lightheaded, her vision a blur as she stared at the lifeless man who once promised her forever. This wasn't an accident. She didn't black out. She pulled the trigger calmly, deliberately, and without a hint of regret. But her rage wasn't satisfied. The man lying dead at her feet was only the beginning. She stood slowly, still holding the gun like it was part of her arm. Her steps were measured as she dragged Stephen's limp body toward the hidden storage room behind the wine cellar, one that very few even knew existed. It had once been their secret playroom for experimental fun, soundproof and camera-free. Now it served a much darker purpose. Blood left a faint trail behind her on the polished floors, but she didn't care. Once she shoved his body inside, she shut the thick door, and stared at it for a while, breathing through her teeth like a caged animal. Her mind was racing. Flashes of past nights, laughing faces, moans, hands, skin, whispers. She hated them. All of them. The 6 couples who had joined their 6th circus of pleasure. They weren't just partners in fantasy. They were accomplices in everything that destroyed her identity, her marriage, her womanhood. And now she was carrying a piece of one of them inside her. A cruel, irreversible reminder she washed up, dressed in her most elegant black silk gown and applied subtle makeup, just enough to hide the exhaustion in her eyes. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen island as if nothing had happened. Her phone was beside her, screen dark, but her mind was alight with purpose. Then she opened the group chat labeled Private Inner Circle. You are Jessica. Emergency celebration tonight at our place. Major win with our new investment idea. Drinks on me. All of you come by within an hour. Starts 9 p.m. sharp. No need to dress fancy. Just bring your wild selves. The responses came pouring in for Troy. Wait, what? That thing went through. Holy shit, be there. Or Giselle. Oh yes, we needed an excuse. I'll bring wine. Or Nico and Raven. Wouldn't miss it. We're 30 minutes away. Darren Cameron. Should we bring toys or keep it casual? Diana. You know we'll spice it up either way. Jessica smiled. Her fingers trembled slightly as she sipped from her glass. She had hosted dozens of swinger parties in the past year, but tonight's was going to be different. It wasn't about pleasure anymore. It was about closure. It was about making every single one of them feel what she had felt for weeks. Helpless, betrayed, violated, disgusted. The first couple arrived around 8:50, Troy and Giselle. Both mid-30s, good-looking, flirtatious, and always the loudest during their group adventures. They brought champagne and weed gummies. Jessica greeted them with a dazzling smile and accepted the drinks. We're keeping it chill tonight. No theme, just vibes. More guests arrived. Nico and Raven. Tall, stylish, aggressive in bed, but polite at dinner parties. Then came Cameron, followed by Diana and her husband Jonah by 9:15. The living room was filled with 12 people, including Jessica, 6 couples, all lounging on the sleek couches, laughter bubbling, clinks of glass and faint jazz playing through the speakers. No one asked where Stephen was. That's the thing about these parties. People disappear, reappear, sneak off for private moments. It was part of the culture. Everyone was too busy sizing each other up and preparing for the unspoken after-party that always followed. Jessica offered drinks and small bites. She hugged everyone, cracked jokes, even flirted with a few. And yet she moved through the room like a ghost, detached, observing, detached from her own body. Her smiles were hollow. Her eyes were far away. No one noticed. At 9:40, she slipped away to the basement and turned the massive electronic bolt lock on the main gate. A mechanical hum signaled that the house was now a fortress. She climbed back upstairs, barefoot now. No sound but the muffled music and the soft murmurs of her guests, chatting, drinking, nibbling on snacks. Then she turned off the music. Everyone froze for a second. Oh, Troy joked. Serious announcement time. Jessica stood at the center of the room, her arms behind her back. Do any of you ever feel guilt? She asked, voice eerily soft. They looked around, confused. Giselle laughed awkwardly. Guilt for what, darling? This, Jessica said, her tone sharp. Now this lifestyle, this filth we wrapped in velvet and candles. This fantasy we all convinced ourselves was freeing when all it did was rot us from the inside. The mood shifted. Raven blinked. Jessica, what's going on? You all smiled, Jessica continued, voice rising, and laughed and touched me like I was just some doll. You all fucked me again and again. And now I'm pregnant. Dead silence. I don't know who the father is, she whispered, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Do you understand what that does to a woman? To her mind. Nico stood up, hands raised. Jessica, listen, I know this is scary. We're all here for you. Shut up, she snapped. She pulled the gun from behind her back. It was still warm from earlier. A collective gasp echoed across the room. Chairs scraped, glasses tipped. What the hell is this? Jonah asked. You think I enjoyed this? I begged Stephen not to start this fantasy. But no, he manipulated me, just like all of you did. Diana clutched Jonah's arm. We thought it was consensual. Is it consensual when you're gaslit into believing you want it? Is it consensual when you have no memory of who was inside you? Because it all blurred into one flesh-colored nightmare, Troy stood. Okay, Jessica, let's all just sit, talk, put the gun down. The moment he took one step forward, she shot him. The silencer reduced the sound, but the thud of Troy's body sent everyone into full-blown panic. Giselle screamed and lunged at Jessica. Another shot. She dropped instantly. People scattered, some toward the main door, others into the kitchen or hallway. But the main door was locked. No escape. Windows were reinforced glass. It was a mansion built for privacy. Tonight, that privacy became a coffin. Jonah tried to wrestle her down. He almost succeeded, but Jessica was quicker. She shot him twice, the second bullet catching Diana in the shoulder as she screamed. Blood began pooling on the white marble floors. Bodies twitched. Crying filled the space. Pleading. Someone urinated themselves. I was a good wife, Jessica screamed, reloading with shaking hands. I was a vitaminarting good wife. I wanted love, not lust. I wanted meaning, not this emptiness. Nico and Raven tried to break the back patio door using a chair. It shattered a little, just a crack. She shot both of them before they reached it again, the remaining few. Cameron, Diana, bleeding, and a man named Leo cowered together in the corner. Jessica, please, Cameron begged. You're not thinking straight. Number for the first time in years, I am. She raised the gun again. More screams. 12 p.m., the mansion was silent again. 12 bodies lay across her living room, some twisted in their final agony, others still holding hands. Blood smeared across priceless rugs and sculptures, red splatters over her white grand piano. The scent of death blended with wine, perfume, and lavender candles. Jessica stood among it all, not triumphant, not even angry anymore, just hollow. She dropped the gun. It clinked softly on the marble. She sat down on the same couch where Stephen once told her it would all be okay. The silence felt heavier than anything. She stared at the bodies, at her own trembling hands, and asked the question that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Was it worth it? The room was quiet, eerily so. 12 bodies surrounded Jessica, who sat motionless on the blood-soaked white couch. Her silk gown clung to her skin like a second layer of regret, speckled with dark stains of dried blood and sweat. She didn't sob, she didn't scream. She just sat, staring into the void ahead of her. The chaos had ended, but the storm inside her had just begun. The clock on the wall ticked in rhythm with her shallow breaths. PM. Her hand reached for the wineglass, still sitting untouched on the table. She sipped it slowly, like she wasn't surrounded by corpses, like her life hadn't just turned into the kind of headline she used to scroll past without a second glance. Then she picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She didn't call a lawyer. She didn't call a friend. She called the police. The 911 operator answered quickly, her voice routine and cheerful, unaware of the horror she was about to log. This is Jessica Hargrove. I'm at 51 Valley Creek Road. There's been a multiple homicide. 12 people are dead, and I'm the one who killed them. There was a pause. Static. Ma'am, can you repeat that? I said I killed them. I shot them all. They're lying here in my house. Come quickly. I'm not going to run. She ended the call before the woman could ask another question. Then she set the phone down and laid her head back against the blood-stained cushions. For the next 27 minutes, she did nothing but breathe. She didn't clean herself up. She didn't move Stephen's body again. She didn't hide the weapon. When the flashing red and blue lights finally painted the walls of her glass house, she stood and walked to the door barefoot. Gun resting beside the entryway. She opened the door herself before they knocked. SWAT teams flooded the house seconds later. Dozens of boots trampled across the same marble floors that had once echoed laughter and music. The smell of iron hit them like a wall. Guns were raised. Orders were shouted, but Jessica stood with her hands up, empty, and surrendered. They cuffed her, shoved her to the ground. A female officer read her rights while Jessica stared blankly at the ceiling. As they walked her out, reporters already surrounded the gates. Word had leaked. Some emergency dispatch tip-off. A neighbor who saw the police storm in. Cameras flashed. Headlines were being written in real time. 12 dead in swinger party massacre. Millionaire wife arrested for slaughter. Stephen and Jessica from power couple to bloody tragedy. The next few hours were a blur of lights, mugshots, latex gloves, and quiet murmurs behind glass windows. Jessica answered everything calmly. No lawyers, no resistance. She signed statements, gave timelines, described every shot, every scream. She even confessed to killing Stephen, said it first before they could find the body. Her calmness unsettled them. It wasn't a psychotic break. It was clarity. 3 days later, the arraignment was held in a courtroom so packed they had to open a second gallery room for the press. Jessica stood in a beige jumpsuit, no makeup, her hair tied in a loose knot. Her eyes were hollow, but not unstable. Just gone. The prosecution was ready to push for the death penalty. 12 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of homicide in the domestic killing of Stephen, plus dozens of secondary charges, premeditation, illegal possession of a weapon, tampering with evidence, obstruction of justice. Her face was everywhere. Her past was dissected. Every party photo, every whisper of their swinger lifestyle, every former friend came crawling out of the woodwork to offer commentary. She seemed so normal. They had such a perfect life. She was intense, but not a killer. Jessica remained mostly silent. Her court-appointed attorney begged her to plead insanity. She refused. "I knew what I was doing," she said in a closed-door conversation. "And I chose to do it, but they'll sentence you to death." "I've already died," she replied. "What's left of me is just air." The trial began 6 months later, and the public devoured every second. Prosecutors painted her as a jealous, emotionally volatile woman who couldn't handle her own life choices and turned on her lovers in a fit of narcissistic rage. They emphasized the premeditation, the text invitations, the locked gates, the silencer. But the defense offered something different, a deeply detailed psychological breakdown. They brought in therapists, psychologists, experts on emotional manipulation. They showed the messages Stephen had sent Jessica, coercing her into the lifestyle. They played recordings of couples joking about her being the shy one who needed breaking in. They presented her pregnancy test. They showed journal entries she had written in private, never shared, that described how alien her own body had started to feel. She was not seeking pleasure, her attorney argued. She was seeking connection. Her husband, and later the people around her, turned her into an object of fantasy. When her reality finally crumbled, she didn't snap in a moment of madness. She cracked after being hollowed out for months. This wasn't just murder. It was revenge fueled by trauma. The jury was split. Some saw a woman pushed too far. Others saw a killer with a calm smile and no remorse. In the end, the verdict came, guilty on all counts. But the court, acknowledging the depth of psychological trauma and coercion involved, ruled out the death penalty. Jessica was sentenced to Werdikfang, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Reporters mobbed the steps outside the courthouse. Some called it justice, others called it tragedy. Inside her high-security women's prison, Jessica settled into a strange rhythm. She never joined group activities, never accepted visitors. She often sat alone in the prison library, reading books on psychology and trauma, occasionally sketching in a battered notebook. The child she carried. She lost it 2 months into custody. Stress-induced miscarriage. Some said it was a curse. Others said it was mercy. In an interview with a journalist years later, Jessica said only one thing of substance. "It's not the killing that haunts me. It's that for so long, I let myself be someone I didn't recognize. I died the day I stopped saying no." The mansion was sold to a foreign investor. It was gutted, all bloodied furniture destroyed. The walls were painted white again, but whispers remained. No one ever stayed long. The 6 couples left behind no children, no legacy. Only empty houses and grieving families who couldn't understand how desire could mutate into massacre. And Stephen? His name became a symbol for indulgence without consequence until there was one. As for Jessica Hargrove, she would live the rest of her life behind bars, in silence, known by the world as the millionaire massacre widow. But in her mind, she was still just that 22-year-old girl who once believed that love meant trust and trust meant safety. And now, she no longer believed in either. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like this video for more true crime video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Take care and see you in the next video.